And welcome again, I'm Aditi Lamba and you're watching Vision of Asia. In New York City, the US Jaipur Literature Festival 2018 was presented at the Asia Society. The US segment of the larger Literature Festival of Rajasthan, the event brought together many eminent personalities into New York City to discuss relevant social, political and cultural matters with respect to India and Indian Americans. From panel sessions and speech addresses, the event talked on Indo-US ties, Indian politics, literature, Indo-Pak relations, religion, and much more. With the highlight of the event was member of Indian Parliament, Indian politician, and author Shashi Tharoor, who reflected upon strongly on Hinduism, cricket, and the Indian central government. Also attending the event in full support were New York Indian Consul General Sandeep Chakravarti, Indian Ambassador to the US Mr. Navtej Sarna, musician Zilla Khan, and ITV Gold Parekh Worldwide Media's chairman, Padma Shri Dr. Sudeep Parekh. Let's take a look at some highlights.
Experience after having been in Jaipur in January to also connect here with my writers in New York City and get a chance to talk about the place that we love so much.
During the Ottoman Empire and then afterwards. So it's not just, I think when we talk about cosmopolitanism, to me it's also symbolized by the fact that you can ride a subway train in New York and you can see a woman in a fur coat sharing space with someone who's visibly a devout Muslim, somebody who's visibly a devout hedonist, somebody who's visibly a devout, goth person. I mean, you can kind of see that all there, and there is a kind of ability to exist side by side. But obviously, that kind of cosmopolitanism, if it is born out of empire, whether it's one that is as violent and visible as the British Empire, or one that was, the Ottoman Empire is a different sort of beast, or one that is, born out of American superpowerism. These are the dynamics that we have to understand them and not romanticize them, in fact, to understand how precarious they all also can be, and that we shouldn't take them for granted.
Yeah, the thing I love about JLF is really that it's more than a literature festival. It's a festival of ideas, it's a festival of thoughts, and I get to meet new people and hear new ideas and learn about new books that are out. It's the most fascinating part of my year.
Alia mentioned that there's the cosmopolitanism of the elites, and then there's another kind of cosmopolitanism, and Queens seems to be a great example of that inherent sort of, let's say, popular cosmopolitanism, for lack of a better phrase. But that is obviously now in many ways under threat from the forces of, to use the G word, gentrification. And is that something you perceive? What is that dynamic like in this landscape?
It's so complex, and it's so true, though. It is, again, economic power and kind of the power of, dominance is very real, and it can be seen in concrete ways. Literally, people can buy land and own spaces, and other people have to be pushed further and further out. But I think it's also funny, again, just how class comes to play with it, how an older white New Yorker will see a newer white white resident and be scared. So I was on the street and some interaction happened, and this guy turned to me in a very thick Queens accent, and he was like, "Those look like Manhattan New Yorkers." And I was like, "Yeah, they do." And it's a subtle thing, but it's a concrete reality. When you live in a place for so long, when you kind of are a resident of Queens, are a resident of this place, you recognize each other, and so there's a recognition that comes. And when outsiders come in, there's a level of anxiety that does grow. And many people in my neighborhood are speaking about gentrification, about rising rents, and about rising house values that they know that they can only hold on for so long. Economic reality is real. So it's something that I haven't seen in our neighborhood as you have in Brooklyn, neighborhoods in Brooklyn, people fighting or lots of contentious things going on. But there is a pronounced anxiety and this sense that people are noticing who are the newcomers, how are they different than us, and not in the ways that you would think.
And I think it showed how much sense of prestige and so forth is connected to this idea of writing, where I think India is a fascinating cultural sphere that shows how very long oral traditions determine this culture. The same with print. Print came very, very late to India, brought via Europe by the Portuguese.
So I was inspired to write the book because I've always believed in the power of storytelling. I think that we are storytelling animals. We make sense of the world and of ourselves and others by telling stories about them. And I've always felt that to get to know another culture, you have to learn about its foundational texts and storytelling traditions.
So both writing and these later print technologies come to India later. But you could almost say that perhaps because of that, there's this unbelievable epic storytelling tradition in India.
There was one story that no one had really told, and that was the history of storytelling itself. So this is what I wanted to tell. So there are stories from all different parts of the world, including ancient civilizations in Mesopotamia, China, South Asia, Africa, and the Americas, and of course also Europe, from the ancient world to the present. So it's really a big sweep. It's a bird's eye view of literature that though zooms in to particular moments and episodes where new modes of storytelling developed.
This is my first JLF appearance, and really love it so far.
There have been some wonderful speakers. One gentleman, Mr. Daparaya, wrote about the Kohinoor diamond, and which was exciting because I have a jewel in my book that's a theme of the story, how the jewel follows the children all through the story and help resolve the issues. I'm looking forward to someday being at the Jaipur Literary Festival for Children. I understand there's one every year, and hopefully when my book is out in the hands of all the Indian children, I'd love to be there and read with them.